Here. I hope you all received a copy of my statement. This is an important day in the legacy of the historic gas plant in the city of St. Petersburg. It is the end of a chapter, but it certainly is not the end of the story. I do want to thank our partners, our great St. Pete team, our city council, chairman, our Pinellas County Commission and staff, and all the business and community partners who really worked in an extraordinary way to bring this together. While the decision of the Tampa Bay Rays ownership to terminate the agreements for a new stadium and a new development is a major disappointment, it is not the end of the story of the historic gas plant. And so we are very early in the process. As we've learned from this, we want to make sure we've got everything done from a legal perspective, and so I'll give everything at a very high level today, but we do have plans to move forward, and I'm looking forward to working with our community and council to make that happen. So you have the statements, and I'd take any questions you have right now.
Mayor, obviously you did everything you could before this moment to try to preserve this deal. Can you tell us about how this has come up to the precipice and then fell apart here today?
Yeah, so I'm still catching my breath literally because it's perfect. The elevator is out and I parked on the bottom floor, so I ran up with a bum knee. Look, we have done, as I said, in the state of the city, everything possible. The plan we put together, if you remember when we started, what I said we needed to do, extraordinary partnership, city, county, council, commission, and we did everything. We checked every box. We had an unprecedented amount of public funding committed, ready to bond, move forward. We had the agreements for the full 86 acres moving forward. And that was a very tough negotiation process, and Rob led that process. And as he said, there are many levers. The reason the land was sold at a lower price was because all cost overruns will be borne by the Rays. And so we've done everything possible. I don't think a local government team could have done a better job than we have moving forward. And, I'm disappointed that, when we started on a whiteboard. I got a big whiteboard over there. I hope y'all covered it up. Okay. Talking about priorities. What are the priorities for the city? What are the priorities for the Rays? And we came up with a consensus, a group of issues we could work on. Keeping your word is very important. Keeping the trust of a community is very important. The descendants of the gas plant were part of this process. And if you look at the folks who supported this, from the NAACP to the Police Benevolent Association, the chamber, and a number of groups in between and individuals, this met the priorities of our city going forward. And that's really the most disappointing part of that the Rays ownership did not understand how important that priority is. Now we're going to go forward and working with council. I want to have the same kind of equitable development plan, but it'll be smaller in scale. It won't be a grand slam. It'll be a base hit, a double. Now, I also want to say that, we want to move forward in a way that doesn't preclude, if there's new ownership in the next year or two or four, that understands our priorities, is willing to build bridges, willing to rebuild that partnership with the city council and the county commission that has really been damaged. Then we'll do our development in a way, and this is the plan I want to take to council and the community, that allows that baseball development to happen. But it's not going to put on hold the other development that we have been waiting for 40 years when I was in high school. I hope that one of the pictures around here shows that. So, the city and county have done everything possible. I'm very proud of the effort they put forward.
Mayor, will there be any plans to move to have further negotiations, further talks with this current ownership group of the Rays?
The city's going to live up to our obligations under the current operating agreement. That includes repairing the trop. That means they're there through 2028 if we keep our schedule. And so we'll meet our obligations. I have no interest in working with this ownership group. They've got a set of agreements that they signed July 31st or August 1st of last year that we all agreed to. Why would I go back to the same group and trust them this time? That bridge has been burned. We'll meet our obligations. If there's a new ownership group, I'm perfectly willing to have that conversation.
Mayor, given you have used these terms, if there's a new ownership group, I guess the question is, do you believe that the Rays have the resources to build a stadium in this community? Do those resources exist?
Look, I can only go by what they say. Again, I've seen nothing, not even something written on a napkin to explain their cost overruns. I've seen no evidence of that whatsoever. But I believe Mr. Silverman has said recently they have the money. He's made that statement, so I can only go by his word.
Is there a
Mayor.
way to go forward without repairing the trop? You talked about the
I'm
contractual
not
obligations.
going
but
to
is
get
there-
into the details until we have, checked some legal boxes. 'Cause all we have is a social media statement, and Stu's called me today. So, but your question was,
Is there a way to go forward without repairing the trop? In other words,
so
there's an insurance
we've had
settlement.
conversations about a number of alternatives. We've had council members who said, look, we'd like to hear what are the alternatives to repairing the trop. So we've had those conversations, have not been able to come to agreement on that.
Mayor,
So
have you
how long-
received a termination letter, or are
No.
you expecting a termination letter? Did Stu indicate that he would send a termination letter?
The only thing we have is a very brief phone call with Stu, to me, today, and the social media post. Whether they've contacted staff individually, I can't tell you
Is
at
there
this
a
point.
mechanism?
So
they
really,
don't
that means
have
the plan
to-
is still in effect, then all the agreements are still in effect pending a termination letter, right?
We're still in that same schedule.
Yeah, as of today, yes, the agreement would still be in effect. If they don't send a termination letter, we would wait through March 31st, and then after that, it would automatically terminate due to the date.
Given that you don't have a letter, are you scared, or is there a worry that this is leverage or another play by the Rays?
I can't speak to their strategy or logic throughout this process, but I meant what I said when there's not another dime of city money coming forward. The county commission meant the same thing. We have put a very good deal on the table that they've signed to. If this was meant for leverage, it's going to fail.
Is the city afraid that they will go away eventually?
We're not afraid of anything, no. I was born there, and we've got a picture here somewhere that shows that. That was a community before the trop was there. So I don't fear going back to what it was originally. That's the whole reason there's this equitable development perspective here. So we were a community before baseball, we'll be one after baseball, and we still have a shot if we have an ownership who agrees with our values to make that happen. It obviously is not going to happen with this ownership group.
And to that point, Mayor, are you hopeful that there will be a new ownership group for the Rays?
Look, this plan I thought was the right plan, and that's why I advocated for it. That's why we, again, when I came into office, Mayor Kreisman had already selected Midtown. He went through a good process to do that. The Rays had half the development rights through 2027. Those rights will come back to the city. And so I am very comfortable where we are now. We've done the right things. I've always said our city's greatness doesn't depend solely on baseball. I'd love to have them stay, but we're going to move forward
So
regardless.
what's that more modest development deal, the single or the double that you talked about? What
Yeah.
does that look like?
I'm not going to get into details until we are actually terminated, and then we'll talk more about it.
Mayor, there have been voices both locally and reportedly at the MLB level calling on Stu Sternberg to sell the Rays. What is your stance on whether or not he should sell?
My stance is I support the Heinz Rays proposal. I thought it was the best for the city. For some reason, after signing the agreements, the Rays have gone back on it with no really credible explanation. So if it takes another owner to make that happen, I'd be supportive of it. But that owner needs to understand the city and our priorities and the history of the historic gas plant.
Has he given you any indication as to whether he's interested in selling this team?
We haven't had that specific conversation.
He has not said to you, well, let me ask it the other way. Has he said to you, I'm going to be the owner of this team for a long time?
He hasn't said that either.
Mayor, you're
there's
being a real gentleman about the whole situation, but there is an enormous amount of taxpayer dollars that went into this whole agreement. So much staff time, so much city time.
Yeah.
one, is there any legal ramification that you could take to hold them accountable for all the amount of time and effort that went into this plan? And two, if there's not, is there something that you would say to the taxpayers about all the work
Yeah.
that's gone into this, that they?
I wouldn't take anything off the table. You know, this is pretty fresh, and we'd have to look at all our options. But you know, the way that we conducted ourselves throughout this process was really set the standard. And it was thousands of hours of work. Our team was here 7 days a week, through holidays, through personal and family losses. I can't explain to you how much work our city staff put into this. Same thing for county staff, for the stadium piece of it. So yeah, there's a tremendous cost for us to get to it, but it was to get to bringing a solution to a 40-year issue that has vexed our community and a $6.5 billion impact over 30 years. It was well worth that investment, but that's one of the reasons why I say I wouldn't consider working on any kind of reset with Stu, because we spent an incredible amount of resources to get to this point. This is the agreement that we all agreed to, and now for these unspecified cost overruns, that's being used as a reason to kill a deal. I'm not going to play that game again.